Now, you must have dove down the rabbit hole before on all things dye. And for those that aren't too familiar with synthetic dyes, can you go into the prevalence of it, of what you started seeing? You said it's in, of course, medications and things, but how prevalent is it, especially when it comes to things that we provide to our children?
Well, going into the film, we purposely, Whitney started to dig into research, and once she realized how complex it was, we kind of purposely backed off. We wanted, early on, we recognized, okay, we need to make this film a film that somebody who's never heard of this ever can watch and not feel like it's over their head and not get confused about it. So we went into it very naive so that we could ask those questions that, a general person would ask. Um, Obviously throughout the process, we've learned a ton about synthetic dyes and, and how prevalent they are. It's, it's an additive that's really, really hard to avoid, even if you know that you need to avoid it. It's obviously in like your brightly colored junk food, and your ultra processed food has a lot of synthetic dyes. But then it's in like these little other little places, like, there's some spinach tortillas out there that they seem green because they're spinach, right? They said, but that's not why they're green. They're green because they have blue and yellow dye in it. And then, marshmallows, a lot of your name brand marshmallows have blue one in it. And then muffins and breads and sports drinks and, all kinds of things that a lot of people look at as like, maybe even a lot of people look at a lot of this stuff even as healthy. People think of drinking Gatorade to help them, perform better in sports. They're not thinking about these chemicals that are in there just to cosmetically make it look bright and colorful. So it's really hard to avoid, but the majority of people have no idea that it's something that they should even be looking for. So like,
Right.
the FDA's website, they have a little statement on there that if you're worried about your family and you're worried that, synthetic dyes could be an issue, then read labels and avoid it. But first of all, you have to know that it is an issue, that's an actual thing to do that. And realistically, like, asking Americans to police their food with these labels that have 30 ingredients in it that you can barely pronounce, let alone know what they are, it's kind of crazy. So
Yeah, and we put our trust into these organizations, and they're
exactly.
kind of like, well, you do the research. We're just going to say yes to it, right? And have you figure that out if it's going to actually harm you or not. Have your outlooks on, the government organizations in charge, the companies behind them, has that changed drastically as you've
Oh,
gotten
for
into this?
For
sure.
sure, for sure.
Right?
Like, and even beyond synthetic dyes. So, like, what's crazy is synthetic dyes are one of the most regulated additives there are. A lot of people don't realize this, but every single batch of a synthetic dye has to be a sample of that has to be taken and sent into the FDA to be batch certified. So they had tested to make sure that it has the allowable amounts of like carcinogens and heavy metals and stuff like that. Like, so it's actually pretty regulated. But obviously, on this journey, we learned about the whole grass loop and stuff. And luckily, dyes don't fall within that. But the fact that there are thousands of chemicals in our food that have never even been looked at by the FDA because there's this loophole of generally recognized as safe, like, it's crazy. And our country tends to lean more on, we're going to put it in here until somebody proves that it's not safe,
Yeah.
where it should be the opposite of that. It should be, you should have to prove that a chemical is
Safe.
like safe beyond a shadow of a doubt before we're putting it in food, especially children's food and like things that are marketed to children. So yeah, definitely realize that was a big eye opener that the general population probably assumes that if something is in food, that it's been well researched and well studied to be allowed to be in there, but like that's really not the case. And I think I heard the statistic, we don't know for sure, but we hear, I've heard the statistic from people like Cali Means of there's, Europe has 400 approved additives for food additives where we have like 10,000, which is a crazy difference. So
Yeah, that is shocking, especially when you're like, we're all humans. Why are some countries allowing so little of this and protecting their people? And we're sitting here saying, add more in, do that more.